Hello and welcome to part two of the ESL Introduction to ESL Teaching program that we're doing here. Okay, so in part one we talked about how teaching does not equate to learning and how students are not an empty slate that just, the teacher just transmits knowledge into this empty vessel or whatever. But the students are more responsible for the learning and must have a personal effort and interest in the learning. So, what does this mean? This means that lengthy explanations are not that helpful in the ESL classroom, okay? Lengthy explanations in English a lot of the time are difficult to understand. But even lengthy explanations in the student's native language actually have been shown to be not that helpful in that the students don't retain the knowledge all that well. So the main thing that is helpful is getting the students to use the language. Okay? So there are two things that we have found to be very helpful. One is giving them comprehensible samples of the language. So we want to use very simple sentences, easy grammar, easy vocabulary. The only part of the sentence that should be new is the part that you're introducing. Okay, you don't want to give them this complicated sentence where they don't understand half of it. You want it to be a very easy and simple sentence, and then only with one new thing, which is the part that they're focusing on. Okay, and then on top of that, you want to give them the opportunity to use the language and to communicate using the target structure that you're trying to get them to learn. Okay, so we're going to be using this model of learning, which is, not necessarily the model of learning or something like that, but whatever, it's what we're going to use here. So this model of learning has 5 steps. The first one, and this is how it works, this is how we're going to think about it when students are learning things, okay? So it has 5 steps. Part 1, step 1, the students do something. Step 2, the students recall what they have done. Step 3, the students reflect upon what they have done. Step 4, they draw conclusions about what they've done. And step 5, they prepare for the next time that they're going to do something. Okay, so the thing that I want you to realize about this model is that it does not include anything, it does not involve the teacher at all. It is 100% up to the student to learn to learn everything. Now the teacher can help, and I've written down a list of ways in which the teacher can help, and I'll go through that list now. By counseling, by instruction, by demonstration, by supporting the student, by giving examples, by providing feedback, by teaching, by giving guidance, and by providing information to the student. Now, all of these things can definitely help the student, and they can definitely help the student learn stuff, but they are not necessarily, they're not required. Okay, they're not part of the 5 steps. They're not how the student learns. They can help the student learn, but they are not actually how they learn. Okay, so what can we learn from this model? There are a couple things that we can learn. Okay, one is, like I said before, avoiding lengthy explanations. Explanations are not part of this model. Okay, number 2 is being an overly helpful teacher, providing the answer too easily, and teaching techniques are also not a part of this model. Okay, so what does this model tell us about active things that we can do to help the students? The main one is giving the students opportunities to try out the target language, okay? Giving them as many opportunities to speak and as many opportunities to do things as they can, okay? And the other thing we can learn from this model is that mistakes are good. Being wrong helps people learn. Being wrong is something that is actually helpful to people. It's not a bad thing. Mistakes are helpful. And another thing that we can learn from this model as opposed to the old model is, like, in the old model where it was just kind of like, where it's just kind of like the teacher teaches and then the students, just are transmitted knowledge by osmosis or something. Um, it doesn't really view the students as that human. Okay, so in this model, we're viewing them more as human and more involved in the learning. Okay, we're viewing them as a whole person. And when you are teaching, you're going to realize that your students have they bring a whole lot to the class. Especially if you're dealing with children, they bring a ton to the class. Okay, so what are some of the things that they bring to the class? They bring their needs. They bring their wishes. They bring their worries. They bring their days. They bring their dreams. They bring their anger. And they bring their fears and they bring their moods. And one other thing you might be aware of is that if they have some kind of like a physical injury, or if they've had a fight with their friend, that could totally be something else that they're bringing to the class. Okay, so let's recap a little bit, and then we're gonna finish off here. So the main thing is so another thing that we can learn from these models is that your performance as a teacher is a minor factor in their learning. Okay, your teaching actually may be interfering with their learning. Okay, you don't want to be the teacher who's up there explaining a ton of stuff and getting in the way of them thinking through the problem and figuring out things for themselves. Okay, so what we want to do instead is concentrate on enabling learning, not on improving our teaching. Okay, thank you very much for listening. This is the end of part 2, and I'll be back with part 3.